Assalamu alaikum, fellow Toastmasters. This is Talha bin Hamid. I'm the Club Road Director of District 122 TC. I'm also the immediate past president of Karachi Toastmasters Club and VPPR of Husn Khitabat Toastmasters Club. Today I'm going to talk to you about a very sensitive topic because from all the people that I've been mentoring so far, this is the first and burning question. How do we write a speech? Just to give you an idea, I joined Toastmasters in 2016 and I delivered my icebreaker in January 2017. So that was about 3 years and 2 months. In those 3 years and 2 months, I was able to complete the DTM through the old curriculum, which means 55 plus speeches. And I also managed to complete 3 pathways, which means another, let's say, 40-45 speeches. So I certainly seem to know a thing or two about writing speeches quickly. So I thought that I'll share these tips with you because many of the Toastmasters that I talk to, sometimes they skip their speech slots simply because they cannot think of something to write. So I will start with my tips one by one, and I hope you find something of value here. Number one, read. In order to be a successful Toastmaster, you have to be an avid reader. Now, don't be influenced by anyone about what you should read. If you're a chartered accountant like me, please don't be fooled and flummoxed into reading just business books or business recorder or the business pages of a newspaper. You have a right to life. You have a right to enjoy life, and you know what? Reading is an activity that is both entertainment and educational. So it doesn't have to be a punishment. So read whatever you like. Me, I read novels, I read Stephen King, I read science fiction, I read, let's say, comedy websites, I read Urdu digests, I read Reader's Digest, I read anything and everything that comes my way. And you know, that's what plants ideas into my head. I mean, you don't need to be conscious, you've got to love what you're reading. Only then you will absorb it. And language isn't a barrier. Ideas do not require any language. Ideas just require your presence of mind. Once you have a strong enough idea, it will be easy for you to translate into any language of your choice, whether it's English or whether it's my native language Urdu, or whether it's your native language, which might be French or Spanish or Italian or Swahili or any other language. Number two, maintain a notebook of ideas. That springs directly from reading because you see so many interesting things in life. You encounter so many interesting people. You have so many interesting incidents. Every one of those things can become a speech. That's what I've been doing. So maintain a notebook of idea. Ideally, it should be a phone-based notebook, which is backed up to the cloud for reasons, and so that you can access it anywhere, and so that it remains safe in case of any mishaps. So what is that notebook? Just write down anything that interests you, any interesting line that you read, any interesting quote that you read, any interesting brainstorm that you have with someone, any interesting idea that springs into your mind. Just write it down. Don't think about how it will turn into a speech, because right now you're just writing down the ideas. Let me give you an example. So that day I'm big on gaming, and so is my son, who is 11 years old right now. He is used to playing racing games with manual transmission. Imagine that. Why do we play racing games? For fun and enjoyment. And where's the fun and enjoyment in manual transmission? And yet he plays it. And he told me, Baba, this is far easier than playing with a automatic transmission because you have better control of the car. And guess what? I tried it. I failed miserably the first few times, but then I started to get the hang of it. So that is your 5 to 7 minute speech right there. My son being my mentor. And you can apply this in your mentoring project, you can apply this in your leadership project, you can apply this anywhere. Second tip, forget about quality. Yes, you heard that right. Forget about quality. Why? You just have to write the speech first. You have to get something down on paper. You have to gather all your ideas, and then you can think about quality. Don't be too much bothered about the language, about the delivery while you're writing the speech. Just write it hurriedly. Because remember what I said. These are the tips which will enable you to write a speech in 30 minutes or less. So that means that if you've got a strong enough idea, just jot it down. Just write it, pencil it, or pen it, or ink it, or even type it. Preferably type it so that you can edit it later. You can spend ages editing it and refining it, but first get the thing down on paper. That's important. Sometimes we get too bogged down by the concerns of word usage, by the concerns of appropriateness, by the concerns of structure. We often lose track of what we are about to write. So that should not happen to us. Another tip, eloquence and vocabulary aren't the same. I get asked so many times that how do you develop vocabulary? And I tell them, you don't need to develop vocabulary. You need to develop a writing or speaking style that is easy and simple to understand, and at the same time it's elegant. So you don't need fancy words. You don't need fancy structures. You just need to be able to write grammatically correct English or any other language. And guess how you'll get the hang of it? You guessed that right. Reading, reading, and reading. Only when you read enough, your ears start telling you whether the sentence sounds right or not. I suck at English grammar. I don't know anything about anything beyond past tense, present tense, and future tense. Hell if I know anything about past participles or present continuous. Never got into it. I was really bad at grammar, but I was always good at writing because I read a lot. So that sense needs to be developed into your brain. You don't need to bother yourself about technicalities. A time will come when you will know whether you've written correct English or not. And from there you can develop not towards eloquence but towards elegance. All the great writers, all the great speeches in history, they are paragons of simplicity and elegance. Elegance is subjective, but elegance does not need to be ornate, it does not need to be over decorated, it does not need to be purple prose. And you know the three things that I said just now? They are prime examples of purple prose. Instead, I could just say they don't need to be too difficult to understand. In our school, we would often mistake eloquence for, let's say, flowery language or fancy vocabulary, words that no one else would understand. But no, that's not what Toastmasters is. In Toastmasters, you have to get your message across. And in order to do that, you have to be as simple as possible. And at the same time, once you have written enough speeches, you will discover that you've developed a writing style. And you can even develop it into something more poetic, more lyrical. It doesn't have to have fancy words. Fancy words will come naturally to you. You don't need to memorize them. Instead, you need to focus on the language and the structure, and sometimes that's all there is to elegant language. Then another tip, and this is my main bone of contention with many Toastmasters speeches that I hear. Listen to your own voice. Listen to what's playing in your head. Don't take crutches of other people's quotes. See, they take away from the speech. If you have spent time and effort in constructing a well-structured, elegant 5 to 7 minute speech, and you end it with a quote, what do you think will happen? People will remember that quote. They won't remember your speech. They will remember that the last words that you uttered were by someone else. And you know what? No quote can encapsulate your own life. You are you. Your universe is your own. You have lived your own life. Bill Gates has not lived your life. Steve Jobs has not lived your life. Martin Luther King has not lived your life. You are the master of your own universe. And your experiences, your thoughts are unique to you and you alone. As far as you are concerned, you are the center of the universe. Think about it. You close your eyes and universe disappears. You close your eyes and all the fancy books and the so-called models of success that you've read about, they disappear. When you close your eyes, it's just you and you alone. So listen to your own voice. Trust me on this. Things that you write on paper before delivering a speech, they will often surprise you. They will often delight you much more than anyone else's quotes. So yes, use quotes occasionally, but try to use them in the beginning and try to use them as a support for your argument. They should not be your argument. Your arguments should be your own quotes. Trust me, that will sit much better with the judges, with your evaluators, with the audience. Don't rely on other people's words. Your words are as good as anyone else's. Trust me on this. Then, reading the project. I know in Pathways you have to click through various screens to read the project, and my instinct is to just click through it. Okay, fine, yeah, I've read it before. Let's get through it. But no, you have to read it again and again, because guess what? They are telling you the exact specs of the project, and they will give you a lot of ideas about how to do that project. So if you're stuck, if you can't find anything to talk about, if even your list of ideas isn't helpful to you, turn to the project text in Pathways, download the project as PDF, read the whole thing, and I guarantee you that by the end of your reading, you will have a speech in your mind, because that's what those projects are for. Read them, read them, read them again and again. You have to fulfill everything that's written in those projects, not just the few lines of text on the evaluation sheet. And something that springs from it, try to give your evaluator the entire project. Download the entire project as a PDF and give it to them. Don't just give them the evaluation sheet, because sometimes the evaluation sheet is very generic. It just has 1 or 2 lines of description about the project. The whole project is in the cloud, in the Pathway. So download that, give it to your evaluator, so they have a better understanding of what they're supposed to evaluate. And finally, keep an ear out about language, about lightness, about humor. Read your speech once you've written it. Read it again. Did you enjoy it? If you didn't enjoy it, there's absolutely no chance that the audience will enjoy it. So please, you have to believe it yourself first. If you're presenting an idea, it should be clear in your mind. If you're presenting a humorous speech or entertaining speech or anything else, you have to have belief in yourself, belief in the idea. That's what projects sincerity. So those were a few of my tips. Maintain a book of ideas, read, read and read, believe in your speech, don't take crutches of quotes, instead be original. And finally, listen to your own voice and don't mistake vocabulary, don't mistake eloquence for vocabulary. Instead, go for elegant, simple language. I hope these tips will help you, and in no time you'll find yourself writing speeches after speeches after speeches, because all these tips I've tried myself in real life. I haven't said anything here that I haven't tried and trusted in my real life. So best of luck to you. Anyone who's listening, please keep writing speeches, and the only way to learn to write is to keep writing. That's a quote from his favorite writer, Stephen King. Yes, I violated my own principle, but guess what? This is not a Toastmaster speech. So the only way to learn to write is to keep writing and to keep reading. And in no time you'll find yourself crossing levels. In no time you'll find yourself completing a pathway, and then one day to distinguished Toastmaster. Thank you so much for your time.